Don't worry
And,
about it.
and it seems like we're live. Good evening. This is Project SIP's 21st podcast. It is Thursday, January 28th of 2021, our second of 2021 here. We are live here on Facebook. Please like and follow our page here so you can see more of us, and so you can also interact with us. But we also have a new panelist today. We have Penny here today. Say hi, Penny.
Hello.
So Penny,
Hello.
Penny, since this is your first time, you get to tell us a little bit about yourself and your political leanings.
I was actually pretty much apolitical until Obama, and yeah, I'm pretty far to the left. Like when I take that political compass test, I'm in the very, very bottom left corner. Usually when I take that test. So I wouldn't say I'm a Democrat, but I'd say I'm further left than that. And yeah, so I've gotten a lot more political in the Trump era because I just got pissed off. And
I was going to say that definitely being in the last 4.5 years has gotten a lot of people galvanized. So I'm glad that you've seen what's been going on in politics over the last couple of years and joined in on the fun that is politics.
yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm Tyler, but we also have our usual panelists with Jewel, Vladimir, Kylan, Amanda, and returning champion in Jordan as well. So we're going to have fun today because we're going to talk about a lot of really cool and fun things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. We titled this podcast tonight as No More Drama because, we were thinking that there was going to be a little less drama happening in the political world over 2 weeks than the previous 2 weeks. If you guys kind of know, January's been a very weird month. The first Wednesday in January, we had the awesome little insurrection on the Capitol with the huge riot and chaos with those people that were there. And then the next Wednesday, we had the second impeachment trial started in for Donald Trump. Then the third week, we had President Biden being inaugurated. And the fourth week, we had this awesome little thing started with Wall Street bets and GameStop and AMC, Nokia. There was a lot of different stocks that were coming out. So if you have missed the news over the last 48 hours, you probably have no idea what we're talking about. But I wanted to go to Kylan real quick to kind of fill everybody in a little bit about it.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. To everybody tuning in, thanks for joining us. Be sure to like and share our broadcast. It's been a hell of a last few days, and what I'm going to try to summarize this in a nutshell, and Jordan can also fill in any gaps that I may have. But what has happened is with GameStop and with AMC is a bunch of Wall Street speculators, hedge fund groups, private equity groups, institutional investors, basically rich people in high places. They decided to do what's called a short. They shorted the stock of AMC and GameStop. What they mean by shorting a stock, they're basically placing a bet that stock is going to tank, and then they can swoop in and pick the bones off of the carcass and make money, right? So what happens is a bunch of millennials and Gen Xers and Gen Zers and everyday working people, everyday normal people that aren't Wall Street hotshots decided to say, you know what, we're not going to allow this. We're going to fight back against this system, and we're going to use all of our leverage and all of our social media savvy and all of our messaging boards, and we're going to buy stock in AMC and we're going to buy stock in GameStop. And what happened? Now, all of these people are buying up more stocks, driving up the price. You know, Robinhood is over leveraged where they can't meet all of the orders for stock. The hedge fund managers, they're trying to compete with all of the regular people buying. So they're trying to buy. They still want to undercut the stock and come out as winners. And what seems to have happened is the price of AMC went up like gangbusters. The price of GameStop went up like insane gangbusters. And a lot of these working people, a lot of these little guys started making a lot of money, and the hedge funders got the shit kicked out of them. They lost billions. And what happened is they exerted their influence and their privilege. And they're like, hey, government, hey, Robinhood, hey, TD Ameritrade, what the hell is up with all of these little people making money and making us lose billions? We can't have that. Only we're supposed to be able to make money off shorting stock and manipulating markets. What the hell's going on here? And so the uproar that has been happening over the last day or so is all of a sudden, if you log onto your Robinhood or your TD Ameritrade, you're not allowed to buy the stock anymore. You can only unload your position. And so what that does is effectively squeeze out all of the little guys who still want to buy in and make money and come together, whereas the big corporations and the hedge funders and the private equity groups, guess what? They still get to go and purchase AMC. They still get to go and purchase GameStop, but the little man is going to be losing out. And what's happened in the past 12, 24 hours, the price of GameStop is starting to go down. AMC has been neutralized, and they've effectively manipulated the market and canceled the rally that working class people are going through. I'm going to kick it over to Jordan in 1 second, but I want to finish on this note. What happened when those prices went up is what happens when people stick together, when people come together, working people, the little man. It's not about race. Everybody on those message boards, they were white, they were black, they were Asian, they were gay, they were straight, they were Indian. The little man stuck together. And if you go back 10 years to Occupy Wall Street, what's the magic number? We are the 99%. And the 99% isn't about race. The 99% isn't about color. The 99% is about little people banding together and wanting a fair deal and not having the system rigged against them, which is exactly what just happened over the past 24 to 48 hours. So I don't want to see anybody ever come up to me again, especially a conservative, and say that they believe in the free market, because this damn sure isn't the free market. This is not the mystical, magical hand of the free market letting things happen at its own magical pace.
So I could definitely agree that the 99% is a part of this. I mean, that's why 99% of people don't know what a stock shortage is, or shorting of a stock. I mean, it's basically a loan that people can buy a stock at X and they think it's going to be valued less than that, and they're betting on that fact, but they have to pay interest on that buy. So they want to do that as quickly as possible. Now, if the stock goes up, then you have to sell at it, you have to buy stocks at that higher price, and that's what Kylan was talking about.
Margin call.
It's a margin call and a short squeeze, and that's basically what kind of happened. It did happen here with some of the companies that we were mentioning.
And Crimea River with the hedge fund crowd. Oh my God, they've ruled the financial system for decades with their supply side economics, voodoo economics, funny monopoly money. You know, again, we are the 99%. It's time we band together. We're human beings first. It's not black and white. It's us versus the system. Because guess what? You know, the system, the government, whoever you want to say, they've been playing against us against race. They've been playing us against each other on religion. They've been playing against each other on abortion. They've been playing us against each other on guns. But God damn it, once that stock started hitting and they start getting them margin calls and they start getting squeezed, guess what? They didn't give a fuck about race anymore. They gave a damn about preserving their system and screwing all of us regardless of our race and background. We are the 99%. It's us versus them, because they're damn sure going to look out for themselves. As you see, I'm heated tonight. I'm on fire tonight because it's time we banded together against the 1%. It's 99%. I got 99 problems, but a hedge funder. All right, Let's kick
Kylan,
them in.
Kylan, we just started. We just started.
Man,
We're
you
not
are
even
hyped.
10 minutes in. He's coming in hot. Everybody knows Kylan is coming in hot. So I wanted to put out that little tidbit, but I did want to go to Jordan because Jordan is our resident stock trader, daily stock trader. So I wanted to talk to him a little bit more about what's going on in the world of stocks. What can you add?
Yes. So I kind of just want to explain what a short squeeze is, because I think the concept is a little foreign to a lot of people. So when you're so let's start with what shorting is. The best example, the easiest way I can explain it is, say a stock's worth $10. You're expecting it to go down to 5. So you go to your broker and go, hey, can I borrow that stock real quick? And you go, okay, cool. You take the stock, you sell it, you get your $10. And then you wait for the price to go down to where you want. You buy back the stock for $5. You give the stock back to your broker, and that extra $5, that's yours. That's how shorting works. So in any case, so when you're shorting, you have X amount of days to cover your short. So what that means is you have X amount of days to borrow the stock until you have to give it back. So this is all public information. Yeah, and it's with interest. This is all public information. So I can go on to various websites and find out the short percentage, what percentage of the available stock is being shorted. And based on that information, I can see, okay, well, these stocks are heavily shorted, and I can see how many days people have to cover their shorts. So if you, in this case, they noticed that the shorts needed to cover, I don't exactly know the day, but they needed to cover. They came in, started bringing the price up with their buying, when I say they, I mean Wall Street Bets. Wall Street Bets comes in to AMC and GME and start driving the price up while it's being heavily shorted. And all of a sudden, they have to cover their calls. Or sorry, not their calls. They have to cover their short. And so they have to buy it at the higher price because the broker essentially closes the trade for them otherwise. So in any case, this happens. It ends up here. And then what do the shorts do? Well, they revenge trade. They want their money back. So they go back in on a short. But what they don't realize is what they're messing with, which is millions of people. At least this is what happens at first. They didn't realize. They figured it out pretty quick. But at first, this is what happened. It just kept at this cycle of they reshorted. They got squeezed out of their shorts immediately because it just started skyrocketing. And then this cycle just kept repeating until it hit about $300. And then extra hype hit it once the news hit. And then it hits 5. But effectively, this is just a case of underestimating the power of the little man, as Kylan said. And then it's also a case of just epic manipulation because, like you said, they came in, they started shutting down trading because they started losing money. And it really goes to show you who really is in control. We are guests on their platform. Stock traders don't call the shots. We are allowed to be there. We don't have the right to be there. We are allowed to be on those platforms to trade stocks because the big firms don't have to let us. They really don't. I mean, they'd lose a lot of their liquidity, but technically they don't really have to because they really control a lot. But anyway, that's kind of just, that's my perspective on it. It's really an amazing thing to watch real time. Because, when it hit $50, I didn't think it was going to go higher than that. Let's just put it that way.
And then when it more than quadrupled that, it's like...
And it's like, mind you, I've seen stuff like this happen before. This is not the first, explosion I've seen. I mean, there are other stocks like Dries. That happened in 2016, the last election. That went
Volkswagen did it in
$3 to $100. I've seen crazy stuff happen, but this is just another scope entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's happened to multiple stocks over time. It's just this is really the first time where the 99% have kind of had a hand in messing it up for those who didn't want it to be messed up.
And also, I do want to mention, so there was this interesting article that I read in regards to why trading was shut down and what, who lost money. So effectively, Melvin Capital is the one who got super reamed. The one who saved them, was Vanguard? No,
Vanguard. I heard it was Vanguard.
No, Citadel.
Oh.
Citadel. So Citadel came and saved them. But here's the funny thing. So Citadel provides, I believe, over half of Robinhood's liquidity. Mm-hmm. So they are the ones who are the market makers, or rather, are the primary market makers for Robinhood. What a market maker is, by the way, they're the person who matches a buy and a sell, and they go, "Okay, here you go, trade, guys."
They're
That's
a
a market
glorified
maker.
middleman.
Yeah, glorified middleman. So, so how they make money is when you trade, they will front load the trade with a high frequency trade of their own. So they essentially will take your money, trade with it for like a split second, and then execute your order. There's a variety of ethical issues about that because legally they're required to give you the best execution time possible, and technically I think that violates it. But this is part of the system of pay for what's the term? It's pay for. Oh God, there's a term for this. I'm looking for it really quick. But basically, they're paying for liquidity. Robinhood gets paid, or no, pay. Yeah, sorry, they get paid by Citadel to allow them to be that market maker because they make money off of those trades. So when Citadel was short on GME and was losing a ton of money, what did they do? Shut down Robinhood. Made it so nobody could buy AMC or GME. So I don't know about you, but that sounds really illegal. And the fact that Robinhood decided to just do this blatantly up front in front of everybody in full view is proof that they were probably standing to lose more money by not shutting it down. So they just took the lawsuit is pretty much what I'm thinking happened because there's no company, no broker in their right mind would do what they did. And I think TD Ameritrade, actually, they did some various limitations as well. It wasn't nearly as severe.
It was a
as
short
what
term.
Robinhood did.
It was very
It
short.
was very short term.
Yeah.
But they also did something that was very shady in regards to that. They didn't allow anybody to go in unless they had like a crazy amount of margin. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to talk you off. I can get stuck on details.
No, this is what I wanted because I mean, Robinhood did the most damage to themselves, and
yeah, they shot themselves in the foot.
And I wanted to come back to you with a follow-up question to that. Do you think Robinhood will survive after this?
In the long term, no, they're done. They're done. When their IPO comes out, they're going to go into the OTC market quicker than you can blink. They're not going to be listed for very long. In my opinion, I would imagine that the Wall Street Bets people are going to dogpile on it and short it into oblivion.
And for over the counter, that's basically the minor leagues of the market. You're
Yeah.
not trading on the normal exchange. When you suck ass, you go to what's called the over the counter market, where you trade in the dark in a dungeon someplace.
Yeah, if you think penny stocks are risky, you have no idea what you're walking into with OTCs. Over the counter OTCs. But yeah, they're crazy bad. But I would imagine that's what's going to happen. In the short term, I can see a mass exodus. But then again, see, here's the thing. You would expect there to be a mass exodus, but people are lazy. The last couple of times that Robinhood has been down for like a day while the trading day is going, and people have not been able to touch their money or move their money, the system's just been down. Nobody left. Or rather, a small percentage left, but they still retained a large base of their clientele. So I would expect there to be a mass exodus, but given their past history of messing up and not really seeing any consequences, who knows? But I can tell you their IPO is going to die.
I can definitely tell you that this is a much larger problem for them than them being down during the stock trading.
This is a longer term issue.
This is a longer term issue, and
100%. They're going to get sued too, I think. And I think it'll be successful.
I mean, it's going to be a very long term problem for them. But I wanted to ask Amanda kind of the legal side of where places like Robinhood are going to be at here in the future.
So, I mean, if we think about it super simply, when you use any app, you agree to terms of service. And when you're dealing with financial issues, there's essentially a contract between people. And so, Jordan mentioned, I think there's going to be a lawsuit. A Redditor has already filed a class action lawsuit, and the causes of action, meaning the things that they are accusing Robinhood of doing, includes breach of contract. And for breach of contract, they basically have to show that there was some either special relationship or duty to the people using the app and that they violated a standard of care or, standard of custom in the customer agreement with the customers. They've also alleged breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, which basically means like they're claiming that Robinhood acted in bad faith. They're accusing them of negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, which is like the same sort of thing you can bring against your own tax broker or your accountant or even some attorneys if they violate their duties to you as a client. And what they're requesting in terms of relief is, common stuff like attorney's fees and a monetary amount yet to be determined. They're asking for punitive damages. And then they're also asking for an immediate injunction. An injunction is basically an order to either, or a lot of times to prevent something. So like a restraining order is considered a type of injunction. And they want to have the court require Robinhood to reinstate GME on their trading platform. Would one of you boys like to define what GME is?
That's GameStop.
I've been seeing this. I'm not a finance person.
Ticker names is what they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So GameStop. So they, because what they did is on their app, they stopped letting people trade if they were just a regular person. And so that's what they're basically accusing Robinhood of doing in this lawsuit, is preventing essentially the free market from operating and breaching a contract to do that.
Very well put. Very well said. So we kind of jumped around here, but I do want to kind of ask, what is the long-term fallout from this? I kind of asked Jordan this, and he gave his little review there,
Yeah.
but I want to kind of ask Kylan about it and say, hey, what do you think is the long-term side of this? Because you come from the banking sphere, so you can kind of see it too. Oh, Kylan's probably not there right at the moment.
Kylan's muted.
Kylan's muted. But well, then let's go to Vlad, because he's in that sphere too. He knows a lot about money.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't know as much about money as Kylan does. I don't come from that side of finance, but my kind of take on what's been happening lately, especially with Reddit and with what they've been able to do to a couple of these hedge funds, is that and as Jordan said, this has happened in the past, but it wasn't at this big of a scope. And I think the reason it didn't necessarily get as much attention is because there wasn't a giant hedge fund that necessarily got screwed. Here, you had giant hedge funds. Sorry, I had to think for a second there. Giant hedge funds who lost billions. And now what this has done is this has essentially given a voice and a platform for people to fight back in a market that has been horrendously unfair to pretty much everybody in America, minus the people who have the liquidity and have the assets to do shorts and stuff like that, because no one, the majority of people can't afford to do it. So I think that's going to be the long-term impact of this, is that it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how it plays out, because now people know that, hey, if we band together and if we organize, we can do this. Like, we don't, it doesn't have to be like a mass protest, like an Occupy Wall Street or something like that. Like, we can all get behind our computers, get on a trading account, and we can screw over a hedge fund if we want to. And, that's a possibility now. It's an option. Like, this has proven that this can happen. What I'm interested to see is how Washington is going to respond to this. How are they going to try to regulate this? Because when this type of manipulation, happens, and when the stock market crash happened in 2008, like, tough shit. A bunch of people lost money out of their 401ks, out of their IRAs, whatever. No one cared. Now that, it's affecting the wealthy and the 0.1 of 1%, Washington's actually caring about stuff that's happening. So that's where I'm curious, like, what is going to happen there? How are they going to respond to this? You've got Ted Cruz and AOC finally agreeing on something. So, that's really where I'm headed with this. Like, how is that gonna, what's gonna be the impact there, and how is the financial market going to change moving forward? Like, are we gonna see sweeping reforms like we did during FDR, or what? Because I think that's really the next step.
Yeah, literally, who would have thought that GameStop was going to be the thing that brings America together, conservatives and
God.
liberals
But
together?
I do want to add
Nerds.
on.
Nerds.
Yeah, right.
The nerds bring everybody together. But Jordan, you had a point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So I do want to kind of bring. So the trading environment has been changing a lot over the past 20 years. It used to be that only if you were basically rich, white, and black suit and tie, that's who traded. That's who was in control of that. If you wanted to do stuff, you would call somebody who would do it for you. People did not have a lot of direct hand in the market. As things have been brought online, as things have been made easier to access, it has in the amount of people called retail traders like you and me it has increased exponentially. But what really set it off, and I have to give credit where credit's due, it was Robinhood. Robinhood is the reason why TD Ameritrade has zero commissions now. Robinhood is the reason why Webull has zero commissions when they introduce themselves. They're the reason that all these different trading apps have come out. So you have to give some credit where credit's due in regards to who they are as a company. But when that happened, the influx of retail traders into the market, I don't think regulators were prepared for. Regulators, the people who made all these rules, they made these rules with the idea that it was just firms and all these other companies trading this. We are in a completely different environment now that requires that we reassess the actual regulations in place. And it's painfully obvious with what happened with GME and AMC and the amount of manipulation, the amount of just straight up unfairness. And it's really funny to hear this rich billionaire on the news complain about, oh, it's just not fair. Tell that to the people you destroyed economically in 2008. All right? They're taking a little piece of the pie back. But in any case, my whole point I'm trying to make here is the regulations, I think, was a really good point that Vlad brought up, is that these are going to be looked at severely. And I would be very doubtful that no changes are made. There are going to be changes. There have to be sweeping reform after something like this, because what if Wall Street's bets starts messing with other stuff? And the only way to really calm this beast is to address the issue. And I think anybody who is intelligent could figure that out.
Well, for starters, Jordan, what if Wall Street Bets all of a sudden decides to tank Tesla or Amazon?
Right? They could do so at a moment's notice.
It is in theory, it could happen. But also, you bring up an interesting point about regulation. Kind of get back to what I was talking about. I think it's interesting that a lot of the market as it is right now, with the changes that have happened that you brought up over the course of the last 20 to 30 years, with the everything being digital and you have access to all information at your fingertips. The regulations are ancient by those standards. Yeah. And personally, not to get completely off topic, I would like to see a legislative body make a legislative body not composed of people who were around pre-color television make regulations regarding trading on the internet. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So so since we kind of brought up regulations, I did want to ask, what kind of regulations are we talking about? Because again, like I said, conservatives and liberals have come together in saying that this is a problem. We need to fix something about it, because obviously the plebeians have gotten upset and they need to fix something. But what kind of stuff should we come up with? Not we, but our politicians come up with, regulations wise.
some things, not just regulation wise. I think one thing that I think would be very beneficial is having a Wall Street financial transactions tax. I think taxing high frequency trading is going to have an effect that's going to actually shut down and slow down a lot of these shenanigans, in my opinion. Not only that, a high frequency transaction tax not only is going to cut down a lot of this shenanigans, but also provide a very a good and direct measure of funding that we could then reinvest, into our communities, into education, into housing. So, it's kind of like defunding Wall Street, or shall I say, reallocating resources from Wall Street. But if we really want to talk about just regulations in general, I really would start with a top-down regulatory approach, not regulating from the bottom up when you're talking about, against Redditors and the little guy and keeping them from being able to take part in markets. I think it needs to be a more broader regulatory, say something along the examples of, cutting down on Jordan, the one rule that you were looking for, that you wanted to talk about. I know exactly what rule you're talking about, and I
Payment
can't
for order
my
flow.
tongue either. But back in the Obama administration, he actually once considered repealing that rule, but Obama, being the neoliberal that he was, and succumbing to the pressure of Wall Street, didn't repeal that rule.
Now, do we want to start using taxes as a penalty for things like this, or is there other means to the end that we can come up with without having to use that as basically using it as a dart and be like, hey, we have to come and tax you into oblivion to give you some repercussions for what you've done? Is there another thing that we can do besides taxes?
Well, Tyler, I think the problem is that taxes are a punishment in this situation for doing something that you shouldn't, not necessarily that you shouldn't have been doing, but something that could be deemed as being unethical. What you're getting at is, how do we prevent this from happening? Like, because to tax somebody after they've already done something that's cost millions of dollars out of people's IRAs and pensions and 401ks and whatever. Okay, fine, but how do we prevent that from happening? That's I think that's kind of what we're getting at, is like, that's what we need to figure out.
My question is do we want to use taxes as the punishment though? Because that goes into a really bad area for us as a country.
I think when you're dealing with firms that potentially could make billions of dollars from wrecking companies and costing jobs, because also when you short a company, like when GameStop was shorted, it put tremendous financial pressure onto the company. Yeah, they weren't doing great to begin with, but this almost prevents them from being able to take measures to turn things around in a way. So that puts in jeopardy a lot of people's jobs, a lot of people's livelihoods. So when you're talking about things like that and people making billions of dollars off that, hell yeah, tax them into oblivion. I don't give a damn. Like, the capital gains tax as it sits right now for long-term investments is what, 15% or something like that. It's or less than that. Like, that is a joke. So in a situation like where you need to punish people, hell yeah, use taxes, because when you hit people in the wallet, a lot of the time, as far as at least for really wealthy people and these hedge fund managers, billionaires, that's all they
care about.
Because you could throw them in jail. You can throw them in jail. They still have assets.
Yeah, but my whole entire hesitation is using taxes as a punishment, as retribution, is okay until it comes back at you.
Well,
and you
Tyler,
need to be afraid of that, because I don't like using taxes for retribution.
Tyler, I want to retort on that, because we already are punished. The working man is already punished. The working man gets audited way more than rich people get audited, and the little man pays penalties and tax penalties from audits. We get before, say what you want about the Affordable Care Act, but guess who got penalized and had to pay a fine or a levy if they didn't have health care? The little man. So the little man has already been getting taxed. We're punished with gas taxes. We're punished with onerous sales taxes. The little man gets their asses kicked in taxes every single day. But when we talk about, putting financial penalties and levies on the rich man system, that's when the conservatives and the rich people's class cry crocodile tears. Well, cry me a river. Those tears are awfully salty, but come live in the little man's world when you get taxed to death. And, before they start talking about, not actually being punished, because as Vlad said, there has to be accountability. And the only thing these people understand is their money. You have to hurt their money. They keep their money when they're in jail. They don't pay restitution. They don't make people whole. These companies that they pick the bones off, that they destroy, that they scrape to the bone, all of those employees that get fired, their pensions are gone. Their 401ks are gone. Their health care is gone. They're not made whole. They're the last people that are made whole. The shareholders come first. Then the bondholders come first. Then the CEOs and the executives come first. Nobody looks out for the working man. Enough is enough.
I think, Tyler, to answer, also to get back to your question, I think in the short term, we could use taxation as a punishment for situations like this, for predatory trading and these kinds of predatory business practices. In the long term, you could be right. It might not be such a good solution, but while we work out a better solution that could work 10, 20, 30 years down the line, we got to do something now.
Yeah, I think there needs to be far more accountability. My issue is not with taxes. My issue is not with any of that. My issue is with fining them and following through and crushing them for doing what they did. Whoever is responsible for this and setting an example, frankly, because the financial institutions have been allowed to do what they want for far, far, far too long. Far too long. And sorry, yes. But
no, I was gonna say, Jordan, I completely agree with you, and I think this is a situation where that might actually happen because the person who did the screwing wasn't a giant hedge fund.
Well, here's the thing about that. I think a lot of the blame is interconnected. Yeah, I don't think it's right to only blame Robinhood. You have to blame the whole system that allows paying for order flow. You have to blame a system that allows Citadel to do what they did. And I believe that Citadel had a heavy hand in influencing Robinhood to do what they did.
Agreed.
Given that they had such tight working relationships and given that, they were associated with a lot of other stuff. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. I just want to see some actual repercussions hit them because honestly, they don't care about taxes. They'll find a way to work around it. These companies have been working around tax their entire lives. Like that's their job. You're not going to get them with tax. And you get them by taking the money directly out of their wallet.
And here's the thing, though. I mean, Robinhood gets sued, even if they get however many millions of dollars they have to pay out in settlements, they're going to turn around and write that off as an operating loss on their books and claim that as a tax deduction.
And that's my point. They don't care about tax. They'll find a way around it. There's always a way around it.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying, tax them, because no matter what else happens, they're going to be able to write it off.
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, they shouldn't really worry too much at this point because the damage is already done. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's not going to get much worse for them because it's already pretty bad.
It's going to be a very interesting time here in the future, for sure. And we all talked about stocks. Can you believe it? It was great.
I loved it.
But I do want to move on to the other point of everything. The fact that I can look at my phone and not be scared to see what's on it because we have a new administration finally inaugurated. It's great. Joseph R. Biden Jr. is in. I mean, everybody's guard's still up. We're going in with positive hesitation, I guess you could say. But right now, Joe Biden has a net approval rating of 27 points, which is great. It's crazy to think that that's actually low for the first week of administration, because we are so used to Donald Trump's numbers of being negative. Donald Trump's original net approval rating, his first week in office, was a +2, which was historically low. But at least we have a president that's likable right now to a certain extent, and he's at least acting like a president in terms of there isn't a constant barrage of of tweets and
Lies.
policy lies, policy decisions that are literally crazy and everything. But I did want to talk about his first week, and I wanted to start off with our newest panelist, in Penny. What did you think of, starting with the inauguration? What did you think of the inauguration?
The inauguration was fantastic. I mean, I think they did a really good job doing a virtual inauguration. I was really skeptical, as to like how that would come off. But just fantastic job. And the poet, I forget her first name, Gorman, just knocked my socks off.
Yeah, the Amanda Gorman.
And yeah, and the fist bump between Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama, just like, chills. So really enjoyed that, and more than the inauguration, because I mean, I'm just glad that it was peaceful, and but for me, the joy of this past week has been watching press conferences given by competent, articulate, of course there's always spin, but factually, solid, information, where when there's pushback, they don't yell, "You're nasty," and run out of the room. So, because I had gotten to the point with the Trump administration, I just couldn't watch any of their admittedly rare press conferences because it was just so cringe, and so many lies, and and the other thing I've really enjoyed about this last week is seeing how joyful Dr. Fauci has been, right? To be able to speak his mind and speak to the facts and deal with people who respect science again. So yeah, those are the two takeaways that for me from this past week.
So Penny brings up a great point. I do want to get back to the inauguration here in a moment, but Jules, I wanted to ask you what you thought about Jen Psaki and how her daily press briefings have been, comparatively speaking, to the five the five different people we had doing the same job in the last 4 years.
Well, I mean, it's nice to not have alternative facts. We have just facts. And my screen just froze in a really hilarious way. And I can fix that right now.
We can at least hear you, Jules.
So for 40 minutes I was waiting to speak. Totally on camera.
Your camera just
totally on camera.
It's a perfect meme.
It was like just absolutely like I was just sitting here waiting to have something to say about anything, and of course the second I start speaking, frozen when I'm like this. Okay, so it's a breath of fresh air, right? Because we don't have the alternative facts, and my fucking screen froze goddamn again. What the goddamn hell is going on with this? Okay, it's a breath of fresh air. I'm sorry. Okay, so she's doing a great job. The only criticism I've been seeing of her is that she says a lot, like filler sounds, which is kind of a bullshit criticism, because for one, she's been doing it for about a week. So let's give her a break in terms of
granted,
the
she was the
filler
deputy.
sounds.
She was the deputy,
right?
For Obama. So
Yeah.
she's at least knowledgeable of the job.
She's knowledgeable of the job. She's been working it for a very long time. She knows what she's doing. She's worked in that office for a while. 8 years under Obama, and plus whatever she's been doing in the meantime. She knows what she's doing. She knows how to report what's going on in the administration, and what I really like about it is that they're just reporting what's going on. Instead of trying to create this narrative, it doesn't seem like there's anything that they're trying to say, oh, yeah, no, there were tons of people there. Oh yeah. Okay, there are tons of people. No, she's just saying, like, this is what we're trying to do, which is exactly what I want. I want my government to tell me what they're doing, not what they think should be happening, because their ego-filled, benevolent overlord, is telling them what to say. No, she's actually competent. She's saying what is actually going on, and everything that's happening, she is reporting on, and she's taking questions. She's not insulting people to their face. She's not walking away from the podium when a difficult question is posed to her. I mean, it just seems like a return to something that's actually a competent level of leadership.
So, okay, you just brought up something that I wanted to talk about a little bit later, but I will bring it up now. Did everybody hear the daily briefing today where I forget, it was a Washington Examiner reporter that asked basically if through executive actions and orders that Biden has gone through, that basically, does Joe Biden see himself as a benevolent dictator? And
benevolent dictator is
because of his use of executive orders?
Yes.
Then what does that make Trump?
That's what I was just about to say.
That's why
Is this the pot calling the kettle black or what? I don't know what's going on here.
I mean, thank you, Jordan. That's kind of where I was going with this. It's like, wait a second. And they're kind of hearkening back. It's a Sean Hannity tweet that he had in the morning, basically saying that Joe Biden has said that you can only do executive orders if you are a dictator or whatever. And it wasn't exactly what Joe said. They took it out of context. But go ahead, Amanda.
Constitutionally, Sean Hannity is really, really wrong.
Just putting it out there.
Just need to throw that tidbit
everybody
out
on
there.
Fox News is really wrong.
Not everybody, but
the prime time.
You have the executive branch.
Yes.
And the executive branch has constitutional powers. So the executive, the chief executive, can do orders, executive orders, for things that are within the president's, their executive's powers, or that Congress has said they can do as the executive. So Sean Hannity is stupid.
So
what an incredible concept.
We can look at in terms of historically what types of laws or ideas, political ideas were put forward via executive orders in the past versus more recently. And I think I'm reasonably certain that we have seen more executive order actions in the last 30 years than we did previously. But that's not illegally. It's not illegal. I mean, it's just that we've had to do that more often because of gridlock within Congress.
Yes and no, but it's also been advertised more too as well. But we also haven't had it to the degree that we've had it over the last week as well. And that's, I guess, more of the concern from people on the right or in the center, is that Joe Biden's done over 30 executive orders in this last week. So, I mean, it's a lot. So, I mean, I want to ask Vlad, like, is that concerning to you, or is there, or are you okay with it?
Tyler, honestly, I'm perfectly fine with it, considering the fact that the executive orders, a portion of the executive orders were repealing the Muslim ban, repealing the ban on transgender people serving in the military, ending like the Keystone XL pipeline, taking climate action, stuff like that. Like, I'm perfectly fine with it. But also, I just wanted to talk to you real quick about Republican hypocrisy and the Republican outrage machine, because Obama was accused of being a dictator by using executive action. Obama, in his 2 terms, had 276 executive orders for an average of, I'm no math genius, but about 138 per term, right? Before him, George Bush had 291 in 2 terms. Donald Trump had 220 in 1 term, on pace for 440 executive orders. There was no outrage. There was nobody calling him no media outlets calling him a benevolent dictator for trying to circumvent Congress to get his legislative agenda passed. So to hear Sean Hannity and to hear, these right wingers out up in arms talking about Joe Biden being a dictator, eat shit.
Well, and the way I see it is he's simply fulfilling the promises he made that got him elected by 81 million people, more people than have ever voted for anybody for president.
But Penny, don't forget about the 74 million people that voted for Trump.
They lost.
Yeah,
The most for any sitting president.
They lost.
Sorry.
And
sorry,
to quote Trump
Penny.
supporters, F your
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah, but go ahead, Penny. I'm sorry. I had to throw it out there.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much all I had to say is the first 100 days are the most productive of any administration. You get the most bang for your buck legislatively when you hit the ground running, and I'm really happy that despite the teeth pulling that they had to do to make this transition, that they were able to hit the ground running. So I'm actually really impressed, and I've been very happy with a lot of the executive orders.
Cool.
So there's one thing I wanted to say about executive orders is that they're temporary. Any new president who comes in, especially if they're an opposing party president, they can come in, reverse those orders. Presidential executive orders have no real lasting power unless Congress makes them law in the first place, which is maybe it'll happen, maybe not. But just as we see, like Trump made a bazillion, several hundred, let's be honest. Okay, not bazillion. Several hundred executive orders, and right now Biden's going through and removing them all. So executive orders is not exactly a perfect way to govern.
Now, I do want to put out here real quick. Thank you guys for commenting down at the bottom of this video, interacting with us. We're having a great time reading your comments as we go through. But we did have a poll a little bit earlier asking, in light of the last few days, should Congress regulate Wall Street more? And 50% of you said yes, and 50% of you said no. That poll is even. So we have a very eclectic audience out here that thinks it should be yes and no. Maybe we should just leave everything the same. There shouldn't be anything changed, but there are some that do feel like there does need to be change going on. So is that an executive order that Joe Biden should put out himself, or should he wait for Congress to go out there and do it himself?
I would
don't think
be
there's too many
interested to know-
executive
oh.
orders that Biden can put out as far as on the financial regulatory side. I think, like Penny said, I think he's been doing a great job thus far, hitting the ground running, being proactive with his executive orders. And one thing that I'm happy about is that the Democrats are now realizing that screwing around with the GOP, waiting for some mystery unicorn of bipartisanship is fool's gold, and they're getting ready to go it alone and start putting together these budget reconciliations in the House and Senate and pass a real COVID relief bill that's going to give aid to state and local governments, that's going to provide money for vaccinations, that's going to provide funding for infrastructure and checks to every American so they can get through this pandemic as far as re-upping and renewing unemployment insurance, and making sure that people aren't getting evicted from their houses. That's what needs to be passed right now. And I'm tired of hearing the GOP bitching about cost when they never bitched about cost when they're coming up with $2 trillion in tax cuts for the corporate class. I never hear about cost when you talk about and supersize me military industrial complex. So just like Vlad said, I don't want to hear any of that bullshit. They can go eat a very long, hard cucumber.
A cucumber. That's new.
Are we talking a regular cucumber or an English cucumber that comes in the plastic wrap?
There is a distinct difference.
English.
That you dip in ranch dressing.
No, you dip it in red hot.
So this should be our next poll question. Which kind of cucumber do you like more?
Oh my God.
There's also
It's getting
pickling
weird,
cucumbers
guys.
or Armenian/Persian cucumbers. So we can add those in there.
Anyway, so
You're very learned with your
Wait, if
cucumbers.
we're gonna talk about cucumbers,
Oh,
we
I
need
know
to
my
bring
cucumbers.
Hilaria Baldwin into this conversation.
so before we go way too far off topic on this one, so inauguration, we had Amanda Gorman do an amazing poem, but did anybody see what Lady Gaga wore? And what did it remind you of?
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Exactly, right? So
The Hunger Games.
that made me feel really weird because Joe Biden wasn't inaugurated yet, and it kind of made me feel like we were going in that direction there for a little bit. But the inauguration overall was fun, and everybody had a great time. But back to executive orders, because I did have a question about this. So we we have had some really cool executive orders. Vlad mentioned a couple before, but I do want to mention he had an executive order that he signed that got rid of the permits for the border wall for Trump. There are executive orders about supporting the reopening and continuing the operations of schools out there, creating a COVID-19 health equity task force, a pandemic testing board, food assistance programs, assisting veterans with their debt, racial equality, facilitating the delivery of stimulus payments that haven't been put out there for people yet. These are just crazy.
Tyler, what
crazy.
you're saying is these are actually helping people?
That's what I was going to say. These are actually crazy executive actions, and that they're stuff that are directed at people and toward the pandemic. So I did want to put out that these aren't just executive actions saying, hey, I want to execute my authority and get rid of anybody that doesn't do what I want them to do, which is kind of...
We have a benevolent usurper, tyrant king ruling by fiat to help people.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. It's not exactly what the alternative reality is saying it is. It is something, but I did want to throw that out there. Moving on to the next part, Biden's cabinet. So there are a lot of there's a lot of things going on, obviously, in the Senate. We didn't have a Senate Majority Leader technically until the day of the inauguration, when John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock were both inaugurated into their positions and sworn in. Victory lap again goes to Vladimir. This was kind of unprecedented that Joe Biden didn't really have anybody confirmed before he started. So how do we, I wanted to kind of go to Amanda and ask kind of, is is it okay for the delays to happen? Is Josh Hawley doing what conservatives want to do and just hold off reconciliation, hold off on cabinet appointments and administration appointments, and delay Joe Biden's plans as much as possible?
So I don't think I can really speak for conservatives. And it sounds like Holly's just going to vote no on every single nominee, regardless of qualifications. I don't know. I don't think it's a congressional conservative tactic to delay things. I think it's just a byproduct of everything that was happening going up to the inauguration from the Trump administration intentionally stalling the transition or preventing it from happening, from all of the legislation around the election, from the insurrection, the new impeachment, to the Georgia election. I think that they have had a lot on their plates. I don't think the delay in the Senate is intentional on the part of senators. And I'm sure there are people out there who disagree, but that's kind of my perception as an outsider in that respect, just what I'm reading about. And so I don't think it's anything intentional. I think there's just been a ton that's happened that's of great import in the last, month to 2 months.
This month has been a long decade, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, is it really still January?
Is it really still January? Jules, what do you think about the delays in appointments and everything?
I mean, it seems true to form in terms of how the Republicans are trying to railroad everything towards their own goals and their own desire to maintain minority rule. They're trying to pull everything out of the book that they can in order to keep appointments from happening, keep basic laws and functionality within Congress from happening. I mean, that's the Republican playbook. It's always about obstruct until we get power, and then we're gonna ram through everything, no matter what. It doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter what we believe. They're gonna just ram through everything. So, I mean, what do I think about it? I think it's true to form. I think that's
Cool.
how it's gonna be. I mean, until we can have a larger majority in the Senate, and hopefully we'll be able to make it through the next House election after all the gerrymandering and shit that's going to go on during the midterms. Hopefully we'll be able to keep the House. The problem is, I mean, there's a census. They're going to be able to gerrymander a bunch of districts in
Executive
several
order.
different states. Yeah.
About the census.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Jules, you bring up some great points. I'm going to just jump in really quickly
Sure.
because I am actually pretty confident, because I think what we need to do now is be bold. So let me just do a real quick thing on reconciliation and how it works and what we can actually do. We could actually do 3 reconciliation bills this year of big, progressive, bold things that can help people, okay? The reason why we can do 3 is there was never a fiscal budget for year 2020. So we can actually prepare a budget to do a reconciliation for year 2020. Maybe we can do 2020 for COVID relief. And then you can do 2 reconciliation bills concurrently, fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022, that we can do back to back. 3 large bills. One we can do for COVID, one we can do for infrastructure, one we can do for maybe tax reform, and actually have the rich people pay their fair share. But this is the time to be big and bold. And guess what? If you go big and you go bold and you help people and you make things happen for people, we won't have to worry about not losing the House, and we're not going to have to worry about losing the Senate, because when people start seeing themselves getting helped and their cities being better, when there's roads and bridges being built and broadband being put down in rural America and in urban America, and people start being able to feed their families and not get evicted, people are going to remember that the GOP didn't do a goddamn thing to help them, and they voted no on everything, and we were the only ones who actually did things. So it's time to have courage and have stones.
Alan, I agree with you to a point, but I think there's also a segment of the GOP that no matter what will vote GOP. you can have a Democrat show up at their house with a briefcase full of $1 million in unmarked, non-sequential bills, and they will still turn around and vote for a Republican.
Well, I want to ask Penny, because Penny, as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you really don't affiliate yourself with a certain party necessarily. I mean, do you kind of feel like somebody like yourself would be left out of any conversation?
No, I don't think so. I think that it's going to be important to keep the pressure up, not become complacent. Now that we have somebody in power, that's, I think, part of the reason why midterms always swing the other direction than for the opposition party. I think that the people in power become complacent, and I really hope that doesn't happen this time. I mean, I'm really happy with what's been coming out of the executive with all the executive orders. There's still a lot to be desired. For example, he passed an executive order ending the federal privatized prisons, but did not extend that to ICE. So the concentration camps on the border are still going to be privatized. And so, we're going to probably have to keep the pressure on to make sure that those changes happen across the board that need to happen. But I'm really hopeful for the next election, because I think that people of color and young people have kind of found their power in this election, and I'm really hoping that we can keep that, momentum going for the midterms, because with those demographics and, the way that the population is changing, we only have, brighter and brighter future to look forward to politically, because the fact is they are the minority, and they're becoming more and more the minority every year. And, even with all their gerrymandering, if we can get people, fired up and motivated and out to vote, we can win every time.
Speak on it, Penny. Speak on it, girl. Speak on it.
What else you got to say to that? I mean, come on, Penny. That was great. So I just want to ask Jordan a question about the first week of Uncle Joe out there. I kind of feel like you are not like 100% on board with him, just in his policy wise, what he ran for, what he stood for, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How do you feel about how he's done so far?
He hasn't had much time to prove himself in my eyes. I mean, like I said before the election took place, he's not my first choice. I did not want status quo. We got status quo. And that's not good enough for me. But I am trying to keep an open mind. People do change. Sometimes it's laborious and painful, but people do change. And it has been a long time for Joe Biden in regards to the shady crap in his past. And Kamala, less long, but, we'll see. Not very hopeful in that one. But, I mean, I'm trying to keep an open mind. I like what the executive orders have done largely. I agree with the Keto pipeline being, given the kibosh. I believe, I agree with, the border wall given the kibosh. I agree with the repealing of trans soldiers. I agree with all that. I like all of that. I'm not going to say I don't like it, but I'm trying not to get too comfortable.
Okay. So you're saying he hasn't done enough to win you over yet?
Correct. It's going to take a lot of work, but I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's going to take a lot of work. He needs to show a very, very strong progressive side for me to really be on board.
So this kind of leads me to my next question for the progressives in our group here. Do you think it's bad for Joe Biden to call for unity.
Yes,
Yes.
100%. Yes, it's awful. I don't know why anyone would even try to be unified with Nazis.
Exactly.
And that's
People
all I
can't-
have to say on the subject.
I'll just say that, I mean, I'm not that upset with him doing that or calling for that in the context of that was his broader message when he was campaigning. I'm a president for all Americans. I can unify us. It's what got a lot of disillusioned Trump voters or Republicans to vote for him because he has a history of working across the aisle. So I'm not mad at him about that. But if you take it in the context of what's happened in January, then it's not what we need right now.
Penny, what you were saying?
I forgot.
Do you, it happens to the best of us. Jules, what do you think?
Okay. I am a progressive. I think that, so what he was saying about unity was pretty general. It's about like, yes, we're going to try and reach across the aisle. We're going to try and work with you. But I think Biden knows better even than Obama knew, who waited around to see if the Republicans would come on and like support his legislation. They wouldn't do it and he kept waiting and waiting and waiting. I don't think Biden's going to make that mistake. I think what Biden's saying is that, yes, unity is important. If we could be more unified as a nation, that would be great. However, my platform is my platform. So if I'm going to enact my platform, I'm going to do it whether you are with me or not. To that end, I think, within the terms of, say, just the COVID response bill, I'm blanking on the word, the COVID
Stimulus.
Stimulus. Okay.
Yeah. I think they're gonna bring it to the Republicans. The Republicans are gonna be like, that's too much money. We can't do that. The deficit that we suddenly care about. They didn't give a fuck about that before, but all of a sudden they care about it now that there's a Democrat in the White House. Well, you know what? Fuck you. We've got Bernie Sanders as the head of the financial House committee. Yes, or the financial. The finance.
The budget
Sorry,
committee.
House fund. Yeah.
The
Senate
committee,
budget committee.
yes. Senate
Yes.
Budget Committee is the word I was looking for. Yeah, we're gonna just do it. You know what? We can do this with a majority, or we can do this with you. Yeah, we're gonna try and go for unity because that is the thing that is going to try and bring Americans together. It's gonna be the thing that, most Americans are not on the progressive wing that we are on. That at least me and Jordan and Penny are at. Yeah, they're not going to do it. They're just not. But we need to put out that olive branch. We need to say, hey, would you like to do this with us? And they're going to say,
Fuck you.
fuck off. It's too expensive. We care about this all of a sudden. And we're going to be like, okay, well, okay, fine. We're going to do it through reconciliation.
So you could kind of meld your points with Amanda's points in that he wasn't necessarily looking at it from
We're gonna try for unity.
we could try, but
Yeah,
it's not.
But if they're not going to do it, then they can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, and that's the thing. I don't think Biden is unaware of the fact that the Republicans are not going to work with him. He's going to put out that olive branch. He's going to try and put on the at least the theater that he's trying to be bipartisan. And when they refuse to do so, we're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Mhm.
He's gonna enact his policy no matter what, and we have the means to do that. I don't think he's stupid. And I think Obama was inexperienced. I think if he had just done the things he wanted to do off the bat without trying to get the Republicans on board, he probably could have gotten more done. But he was not experienced enough to know how to do that. But Biden, he is. And I think Biden, his policies, his platform is one of the most progressive platforms in history since FDR. I think he's not unwilling to do those things. He just wishes he didn't have to, but he will.
So Vlad, I wanted to ask you, do you kind of have the same feeling that some of our progressives have, or are you more in line with some of our middle of the road kind of people?
It's a tough question, because on the one hand, yeah, I would love to see some unity. On the other hand, you're talking about unity with people who, like Cruz and like Hawley, who openly supported an insurrection. So do I want to have, unity and try to reach across the aisle and work with Republicans? Sure. Do I want to do that with people who, who support insurrection, who support, basically a fascist takeover of the American government? Fuck no. And I think that's what should happen right now, is that those people, we shouldn't really be working with them on that front. And that absolutely shouldn't be happening. I also want to point out that Republicans, whenever they gain control of the Senate and of the House, like what happened in 2018,
2010
or 2010 after Obama, I believe it happened again in 2018, or not 2018. I'm sorry, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a shit what Democrats want. They're never going to say, hey, we want to do this $2 trillion tax cut. What do you guys think about it? They're just going to go off and, hold their committee meetings and hold a vote. Not a single Democrat's going to pay for it, but none of that matters, because they have the majority in both houses, and they've got, fascist Cheeto Hitler sitting in the at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, is going to sign whatever the hell bullshit they put in front of him. So at this point, yeah, some unity would be cool, but at the same time, give those motherfuckers a taste of their own medicine. We've got the House, we've got the Senate. Granted, it's a very small minority, it's a very small majority in the House, because it's tied and it's just Kamala Harris, but we have it, so we should be trying to do something with it, instead of, trying to reach across and work with Mitch McConnell, who's been stonewalling Democrats every step of the way since he took control of the Senate during the Obama administration. You know what? Screw that guy.
Well,
I could not agree more.
I mean, there is that. There is that for sure. So I asked the question of unity because there's this little thing that's being held over with the reconciliation, or was held over some of the reconciliation stuff that's going on right now, bringing together a Congress, is the filibuster. And I mean, the filibuster is out there, and it would be great if we had unity on it and we didn't need to filibuster everything, but we don't currently have that. And it's obviously we have people with very strong opinions on both sides about the filibuster, but I did want to ask filibuster. I didn't want to ask Penny about the filibuster and what you think about that and what steps we should go through next.
Well, I mean, I think if it's going to get in the way of bold progressive legislation, then we need to get rid of it. My worry is that we have moderate Democrats that, have signaled that they are not open to voting to end the filibuster. So, I mean, I don't even know that we can at this point. I'm hoping that maybe they will come around if they see the Republican Party being obstructionist, at every turn. But is there anybody who better than me can define what the filibuster is?
Well, yeah. Amanda, can you define? No.
I'm not. All I know is that somebody can talk for a really long time and stall a vote, but I don't know anything more.
Okay.
It also requires a
It was
61
the 60 votes.
The 60 votes as opposed to the 51.
That's primarily what it is. But go ahead, Kylan.
But that's actually there's nowhere in the Constitution that states that there needs to be 60 votes. So number one, there's nothing in the Constitution that actually says that. The filibuster started as a way back, 100 or so, 150 years ago, as a way that a senator could object to something. And the filibuster was simply, they would just talk and talk and talk until they got tired and couldn't talk anymore. And then whatever bill would pass or not pass. But the filibuster started being weaponized under Snappy McTurtle. And, Snappy would start to, basically they started utilizing the filibuster as a way to just stymie any legislation and say that it needs 60 votes. Which is basically to, Snappy McTurtle is Mitch McConnell, just so you guys know.
I mean, Kylan has been using Snappy
gather that, by the
McTurtle for a long time, so let
The only
him
name
use it.
deserved.
He's been using it for months.
That is my name, and so there's like a motion for cloture, and that's where the filibuster comes in. If I were Joe Biden and the Democrats, I would go to Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and be like, okay, I know you guys don't want to get rid of the filibuster, because you believe in the institution of the Senate and minority rights and whatnot, but let's reform the filibuster. Let's say, okay, you know what? If we want to keep the filibuster, let's go and have it go back to its original roots in the history of the United States. Let some bastard go up there and talk as long as they want and stall as long as they want. And once their voice goes out and they can't talk anymore, we move on and we either pass and vote up or down on the legislation. But there has to be some sort of reform now because it's gotten out of control, and it's been out of control ever since Snappy McTurtle has been in control of the Senate. Whereas, even go back to the Obama administration, right? So many good pieces of legislation passed with like 55 votes, 56 votes, 57 votes, and somehow couldn't get passed into law because it didn't get this 60 vote number, which is total absolute horseshit. It is total absolute horseshit that something gets a majority of the votes, an outstanding majority of the votes in the Senate, and it still doesn't become law because of some unconstitutional mumbo jumbo, to obstruct. I understand the minority having rights and the ability to debate, but I don't believe that the minority has the right to dictate to the majority of what can be done. Democrats represent 41 million more voters than the senators. Wyoming has 491,000 voters and 2 senators. Washington, D.C. has over 700,000 voters and no senators and no representation. The filibuster as well as the Electoral College are relics of a time before time, that has long outlived its usefulness. I wish they would both go, but at the very worst, there needs to be some reform. I am hopeful with the Electoral College, though, because we're getting very close to having enough states sign on to circumvent the Electoral College, but I'm sick to death of this for the filibuster.
So the issue that I would say about the filibuster is you gotta take this with a stride because it's not about the short term, it's about the long term, because you won't be in power for the whole entire time. So you got to make sure that this is coming. So Kylan does bring up a great point about, hey, maybe it's just reform and maybe we can work together something to make it a little bit easier for us to move forward with the agenda on both sides, but yet not get rid of it completely. But Jules, what do you think about the filibuster?
I pretty much agree with Kylan. I think that there's definitely ways to allocate rules within the Senate around the filibuster to weaken it and to the point where it's basically useless, which is what it should be. It should be basically useless. And it wasn't part of any Senate rules until fairly recently. I forget the date, but within the last century and a half, it didn't exist before then. It's a relatively new legislative act or legislative rule within the Senate that really doesn't need to be there, and it doesn't really need to doesn't help anything, and it's just been abused more and more and more and more. And it's not just with Snappy McTurtle. It's actually it goes back a little further with fucking who was that?
Newt Gingrich.
Newt Gingrich. Fucking Newt
Newt
Gingrich.
Gingrich.
Yes.
I was
fucking
gonna
Newt
make that point
Gingrich.
later.
And yes, I know we've got some people behind the scenes who are logging our swear words. So fucking Newt Gingrich. So fucking Newt Gingrich, he was the one who fucking decided that he could fucking take advantage of this fucking bullshit. And he was prolific, goddamn prolific. And so we're not, this is just like this is sort of a new thing in a way. Within the last 50, 60, 70 years, yes, I know, like, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the famous last scene is he has a fucking filibuster and everything works out great and all that fucking bullshit. But that whole procedure is new within this last century and a half. And what we can do is we can get rid of a lot of the teeth that it has. There's a lot of leeway we have in order to set rules within the Senate, within the Congress, to say, well, you can only do this for this long, or you can only do this for this period of time. We can only do this this way. And so, yeah, we don't necessarily have to get rid of the filibuster. We can just fucking unteeth it.
Just unteeth it. Cool. Take a
Oh,
bite
man.
out of it. So Amanda, I did want to ask you,
What the fuck, man?
huh?
I said, what the fuck, man?
I know. let me just put it out there to everybody out there. If you want to see more cursing from Jules, just put it down in the comments. Just say yeah.
I'm down to fucking swear more.
Hashtag fuck Jules.
Well, I mean, he just popped the cap
After
off, so
9
I'm just gonna
o'clock.
start saying fuck too.
It's after 9 o'clock somewhere.
It's
It
after 9
can't
o'clock
hurt any more than it already has.
So I did want to get out something, but as I'm saying it, I can't. I'm just sitting here looking at Jules, and I'm just like, I can't ask Amanda the next question now.
I hope I have an answer.
Go for it.
I know.
Just remember to swear.
So
Roger that.
well, we've been talking about the filibuster, and we put a poll out there to see what you guys think. Should Democrats get rid of the filibuster in the Senate? And all of our viewers so far have said yes. So, I mean, it's kind of a feeling out there that the filibuster needs to get removed. But I'm with Kylan. I'm more okay with there being some reform with it than getting rid of it entirely. But one of the reasons why people do want to get rid of the filibuster is to push a more progressive agenda, since the Democrats technically do have the majority in the Senate. It's a 50-50 split. Actually, it's 48-50. And the two independents that are caucusing with the Democrats, and then Kamala Harris will break any ties for that. But I do want to ask about Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. and even Puerto Rico are definitely places that progressives see as a lynch point to add them to the United States as a state. Amanda, I wanted to ask you, do you see DC becoming a state, at least in the next 2 years?
I think if the Senate plays along, then yeah, but that aims to be seen, especially with Joe Manchin basically being the swing vote on a lot of things. So I mean, I think it's more likely to happen than Puerto Rico, only because right now, you know, the Congress already sort of functions as a state legislature for Washington, D.C., for the District of Columbia. It wouldn't be I mean, I could see them approving it on the grounds of like, now we don't have to worry about this shit. Sorry, no swearing. Like we don't have to worry about
That ship has sailed.
legislating what happens in the District of Columbia, sort of like a state legislature. And yeah, there's still, the DC mayor, and if they have a city council, they function that way too. But Congress can pass laws that affect only the District of Columbia. So I could see that being a reason just to, get more work off of their plates. So, I mean, but I think it's still going to be a struggle either way, because you're going to have GOP members who are going to be worried about losing their Senate majority if, whether it's DC or Puerto Rico, gets statehood. Those are two jurisdictions with majority by POC populations. With Puerto Rico, obviously you have the Latinx population there, and DC has, I think, a majority or close to a majority Black residents. So I could see them, the GOP in the Senate, worried that if DC or Puerto Rico are made into states, that they are going to have more Democrats in the Senate as a result.
Now, with DC, it's almost a given. Those are 2 Democratic senators. But with Puerto Rico, it's
maybe. I mean, that's very much like the Cuban population, or what we saw in Texas with the most recent elections.
Texas and in Florida.
Yeah, you obviously have a lot of Latinx people who are Catholic, and there's definitely a divide there in terms of what side they tend to vote on. But I feel like the GOP has enough racist people in their ranks that they would assume that Puerto Ricans would automatically put 2 Democratic senators in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to put this out there, because we have been talking about the filibuster, and we have been talking about the fact that it's a very divided Senate, which is kind of a visual statement of how our country is. But there are realistically 4 senators that control everything right now, and we've mentioned 2 of them multiple times. Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Kristen Sinema from Arizona. Then we have Susan Collins from Maine and Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Those 4 senators, 2 on each side. I'm sorry?
Factor Mitt Romney into.
Yeah, you can factor in Mitt Romney if you want to. I mean, he's just meh. I mean, we already know how Mitt plays along and plays the game. But with those 4 senators in general, I feel like they control everything. And I think they control the fact that if we even bring up DC or Puerto Rico as states. But I wanted to ask Vlad kind of what you think about DC.
I mean, for starters, I think DC is going to give us 2 Democratic senators. That's just kind of number one. Amanda, just to clarify your point on DC and kind of the demographics there, DC is, as of 2019 from the U.S. Census Bureau, was about 37.5% white. So we're talking about a big non-white community, 46% African-American. So, that's kind of where they stand. Which is it's also interesting because DC has no senators, no representation in Congress, and yet they have a population roughly 130 to 150,000 residents higher than the state of Wyoming. So I think, will it happen? It's tough to say because of the 4 senators that Tyler, you had just previously mentioned. Does it need to happen? Yes. I mean, it's funny because one of the rallying cries around the absolute founding of this nation was, no taxation without representation. It's kind of what's been happening to DC since the inception of this country. Like, they don't necessarily have representation in Congress, so
I wouldn't necessarily say since the inception of the country.
Well, okay, fair enough. But it's been happening to people living in that district for a really, really long time.
Now, granted, most people were not supposed to live there. That was the thing about
True.
Yeah.
But you have to adapt with the times, and you have to change with the times. Now that DC has become a bustling metropolis with pro sports teams, like you name it,
in Maryland.
Okay, fair enough, close enough. But like there are residents there. There are people who call DC home that aren't, politicians who show up for, 3 to 4 months out of the year whenever the hell Congress is in session. So, it needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen. Puerto Rico, I feel like, is the same thing. I think it absolutely does need to happen. I think the idea that the U.S. still has territories is kind of ludicrous. Either make them states or grant them independence. Like this, colonial times are over. Like, let's get with it. Come on.
So before you brought up the point about colonialism, I wanted to mention that one of the reasons why we are all very confident that DC will have 2 Democratic senators is because in the last election, the District of Columbia voted for Joe Biden 87 points over Donald Trump.
Damn.
That's huge. That's huge, especially for a population of, I think it's around 800,000 people.
It was rigged.
Yeah, totally right. But Vlad brings up a good point. If we look at DC, now we're talking about Puerto Rico. Now we're talking about Guam, the Marshall Islands, American Samoa, the U.S. Virgin Islands. You have all these places that are still kind of a piece of the United States because of colonialism from the world wars. And Vlad brings up a good point. We need to make them independent, or we need to bring them in to the union. Go ahead, Vlad.
I just want to clarify one thing about about places like Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Guam, all these other territories that the U.S. controls. I think their statehood should be in their hands.
Yes.
I think absolutely, if Puerto Rico wants to become a state, they need to vote on a referendum, kind of like
They've
Brexit.
done that. They've done it.
There you go. And
They've done it.
I think it needs to be the same thing with, with Guam, with the Virgin Islands, with everything else. And if that passes, then Congress can do it. I don't think Congress should unilaterally kind of do it like we've done to, Hawaii in the past.
Now, the thing about Puerto Rico is that they voted for it. It's just not binding, so it wasn't necessarily sent to the U.S. Congress. But Jules, I know you wanted to get in here and ask about it.
Well, I had a question, and what were the circumstances? I know there are military circumstances involving Hawaii and Alaska becoming states in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So was that the only factor that we were like, oh yeah, let's give them statehood? Because they were military and specifically strategic locations for us to maintain, especially with Alaska being sort of nearby Russia to a certain extent. I mean, so was that our only incentive to do that? I guess
if that was the case, then we would have made Guam a part of the union at the same time.
Okay, so why didn't we make Guam?
I don't know, but for Hawaii, it had to do with plantation owners.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was about. The agriculture aspect of Hawaii that had a large part in it being annexed as a state.
And we also
annexed, and it was annexed first, and we deposed the local government, and then later on, 30 years later, right?
So there's a couple points that were just brought up. So Hawaii, yeah, the agricultural side. We also had an issue where the thing with World War II that happened in Hawaii, we kind of needed to take care of that. And then also Jordan brought up a good point about Alaska, in that Alaska does have a lot of oil, and we were starting to investigate that at the time.
We were delivering them some freedom.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean some fucking freedom?
Yeah, some fucking freedom.
Yes.
I think they mostly just wanted to dominate like the entire Pacific coast of North America because of the threat of Asia.
Yeah, you got to remember, we basically colonized Japan. We had the Philippines a part of the United States, basically, essentially, forever too. So we wanted to make sure we own the Pacific, so we didn't have to worry about something coming from that side any longer. Because most of our allies were over on the eastern side because we have Europe, and most of Europe was our ally, especially with NATO and the UN and everything at the time. So those are all things to consider there.
Tyler, quick clarification on Alaska.
Good.
The U.S. actually purchased it from Russia for $7.2 million as a territory in the
Yes.
60s.
Oh God, yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
And
We did.
then
But-
later on, it became a state. At the time, it was heavily criticized because they thought that the U.S. had spent $7.2 million
For nothing.
to purchase a gigantic ice cube.
Yeah. So that
Which
was
is true.
which is true.
Which is
So
true.
I
And
didn't
then-
bring up the purchase from the Russians. I knew you would, because that's your forte, Vlad. But I do want to say that at the time in the 50s,
Mhm.
we didn't want to just have a big ice cube laying out there, and also oil was becoming a big thing there, in that we were discovering more and more. So it was a little bit easier to do that.
No, I agree with you, and I think what happened was, at the time, the Soviets were kind of starting to dispute some of the terms of that deal, saying that it was actually a lease in terms of and control should have been brought back, like kind of like what happened with Hong Kong and China, when control was reverted back to the Chinese government. And so, the U.S. made it a state, and now we have that. Being the token Russian in the group, I actually don't agree with the stance of the Russian government at the time. I think it was a purchase, and they were just full of it. So there's that. But yeah, it was like you said, it was a giant icebox until the Klondike gold rush in the 1890s, and then the discovery of oil, and then, hey, here's Alaska, state.
And that's when they discovered the Klondike bar, right?
Yes, they did, and that was also the time when they found Sarah Palin being cared for by polar bears in a cave.
Oh, that's
I
sweet.
don't even know how to respond to
Let's
that.
see Russia from that.
Yeah, can you see Russia from the cave though?
Yes, you could. Yeah, absolutely.
So I do want to ask this: how many people have been to one of the places that we've mentioned, including Alaska and Hawaii? So like Guam, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, any place like that.
Nope.
Been to Hawaii once.
Been to
Don't
Hawaii?
tell us about it.
I'd love to go to Hawaii, but
It's
have not
beautiful
yet.
and tropical and warm and amazing, and it's the greatest thing ever. But I hear that living there sucks.
I have a couple friends there who enjoy living there, but I hear it's
I hear
tough.
it's very hard.
Yeah, it's expensive, and
Yeah, you either work in
everything has to be
hospitality or you don't
imported.
work.
Yeah. I mean, there's other like more like real estate things like that, like things that
Yeah.
you have to be a little more educated for. But there's not a lot of opportunity, I think, is the deal.
Agreed.
So I bring up the point because if you've been to any of these places that are not a part of the 48 states, the contiguous United States, it is very difficult for a majority of the residents there. I mean, we know about Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. They're basically decimated from the hurricanes over the last couple of years. And most people, they have paper towels. So, so that is something
At
that
least 3 rolls.
they have 3
Oh
rolls.
my God.
But that is something I did want to bring up, is that they do live hard lives. Guam has the military base there. They have employment via the military there, basically. But the Marshall Islands, they have a little bit of military presence there. Same thing with the American Samoa, but primarily those people there live off of hospitality, and a lot of times they don't have an avenue to come to the United States itself and work and vote and everything, even though technically they're Americans, but they're not really Americans, which is kind of weird. That really only goes to Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans can go back and forth, and they can act like true Americans, even though they're not Americans.
They are though.
They are.
Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens.
That's what I'm saying. They
Completely
are.
U.S. citizens. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They are, but according to their representation and everything, and the fact that we have laws that say that you can't stop at their ports and things like that, it just exacerbates their problems because of that. So I do want to definitely make sure that everybody visit these places, because they need the exposure of what's actually going on there in those places. Alaska is amazingly beautiful. I totally recommend going there, but those people outside of Anchorage, essentially, or Fairbanks, they do have some issues for sure. And same thing with Hawaii and all the other places we mentioned. Now, quickly, I did want to talk a little bit about how some of the mandates that are coming back go. So we're going to kind of go back to executive orders real quick, and about the masks, and about how Joe Biden's putting out mandates for masks, mandates for testing, and for travel restrictions. How do we? I'm just going to leave this out to the group. How do we kind of feel about that? Is it too much or too little?
I think he's very limited in what he actually can do, because he can't do a national mask mandate because of states' rights. So he's done what he can do, which is mandated on federal property.
So just enough.
I wouldn't even say just enough. I'm saying within the limits that the Constitution constrains him with, that's, in terms of mask mandates, that is the most he's allowed to do.
That and
on
utilize the
masks.
bully pulpit.
I'm sorry?
That and utilize the bully pulpit.
Yeah.
But as we've been seeing, most of the GOP governors basically gives Joe Biden the middle finger when it comes to mask mandates, especially that chick from South Dakota. She's
know him.
The governor, yeah. Well,
The governor.
I think something like 1 out of every 8 or 9 South Dakotans are dead now because of the Rona. So
yeah,
not looking good over
so
there.
she's talked about as being a rising GOP star. Go figure, huh?
So I know that we should go on to the fun topic, but I did want to ask one more question. How do we feel about the members of the Republican Party basically saying that their voices are censored and they can't put out their ideals?
We're hearing all about it.
Jordan said it perfectly. I don't even need to answer the question now.
If you were censored, we wouldn't hear you at all.
Oh my God.
Look at me on the
Exactly. It's
floor of
so-
Congress with a microphone. I'm censored.
Can I?
Yeah,
can I-
it's ridiculous
Let's
for people
go.
to use a national platform to complain about being censored.
Yeah, seriously.
I didn't even
Can
think
I,
about that hypocrisy.
Let me
Let's
just
let
get
that
in here for a
let
second.
go.
guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Just get in
Vlad.
for a second. I just want to say on the topic of censorship, if you as a politician or as a member of the media or anybody is getting banned and censored from social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you might be using for
People
comments.
call that deplatformed.
Okay, deplatform. Thank you.
Yeah.
For comments that are deemed to be in support of fascism and inciting violence, your complaint shouldn't be that you're getting deplatformed and your voice is being silenced. What you should be doing is taking a long, hard look in the mirror at yourself to try to figure out and get to the problem of why you're being deplatformed.
Well, and these are the
the
same people who rage about the free market.
The fact that they're still getting their message out that they feel like they're being censored after being deplatformed seems a little fucking stupid to me.
They also
You honestly seem like a newscaster when you talk like that, and I love it, and I wish you would do that more.
agreed.
I'll do it. I promise.
they also need to understand what the free market means. You're allowed to say whatever the hell you want to say. Companies are perfectly allowed to not carry your message because they don't want to be associated with you.
Now,
and the First Amendment doesn't apply to private businesses.
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't for sure. But with the platforms having so much pull with American society, global society, frankly, for that matter, are they protected by that?
I mean, to some degree, yeah, legally, as a public forum, but you're still, like we talked about with the Robinhood app, there's a contract.
Yeah.
There are terms of services, policies that you agree to abide by and follow when you sign up for social media apps or Yelp or anything where you can share what you think and feel. Nobody is censoring conservative voices when they're talking about lower taxes or deregulation. They're only being deplatformed when they're advocating for violence or harmful conspiracy theories that have led to violence.
Like I was talking about in regards to the brokers being, and us being guests on their platforms. It's the same applies with any private company that has a platform in which you can be a part of. You are a guest there. Like Amanda said, you agree to the terms and conditions when you create an account. And if you don't like it, sucks to be you.
You can leave.
And here's the thing though, is like, then you get apps like Parler who don't necessarily care about those terms and conditions, who don't care about the violent content, that's being posted on their websites. But what, they don't realize is that they have to be hosted by somebody. Platform was hosted by AWS.
Wait, Vlad.
AWS doesn't want that.
I do want to put this out there. Parler does have moderation. They do moderate, but
they don't enforce it though. I mean,
they
come on.
they do enforce it for the first little bit, and until you give them your information, your driver's license and everything, and then they don't care.
Yeah,
you can say whatever you want.
Well, and that's the point though, is like that's the reason why AWS cut them off, is because they refuse to enforce their terms of service. And so Amazon basically told them, like, you know what, you're not going to enforce this. You're going to allow this violent content on your service. You're off. And now they're hosted in Russia, which posts another, laundry list of potential national security issues.
From our resident Russian. Penny, I'm going to give you the last word on this.
I mean, the whole deplatforming thing, even in cases where they're not deplatformed, if there's any pushback, they complain about cancel culture. And cancel culture used to be called social consequences, right? If
God forbid.
Say something that's extremely fucking unpopular, right? And people pile on you and say, yeah, that's some bullshit, right? That's not canceling you out. That's the natural consequences of your actions. And, so. Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. Thank you, Penny, for that one. So I had to get that in there because it's something that I don't think we talked about last time, but I definitely wanted to talk about this time with the panel.
So Tyler, to end on that though, really quickly, the GOP sure has no goddamn problem canceling entire cities full of voters when they want to overturn elections and cancel all the Black and persons of color votes. They have no problem canceling that. They have no problem censoring people. Little Miss Sunshine, Marjorie Taylor Greene, didn't have a problem censoring reporters when they wanted to ask her a question and they had them thrown out. Yeah, the GOP believes in free markets and free speech. Of course they do.
They didn't just have the reporters thrown out; they were threatened with arrest.
Yep, that was.
Yeah, they were threatened. They were threatened with a violation of their Fourth Amendment rights.
Yep.
That's censorship.
So that is something that's a little bit beyond what should happen, obviously. But fun topic. So there was something that we left out of the inauguration that I think everybody had everybody had fun with, and Penny is alluding to it. Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders, it's funny because he lost 2 straight elections for president, and he still just took over this inauguration of a Democrat that beat him. He stole the show, basically. Bernie Sanders did. If anybody doesn't know, Bernie Sanders came in with his own little um, I would say garden chair, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. But a foldable chair. He came in with one, sat it down, had these nice mittens, and just sat there like this, like an
Did
angry
he bring
grandpa.
the chair? I don't think he brought the chair.
No, the chairs were out there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
I think he.
It looked
But
like
he wore
full-
like,
It looked like he brought
his
it.
Doesn't matter,
regular
doesn't matter.
jacket. He looked like just like a Vermont granddad about to go like drop off something at the mail, and he's gonna stop by Joe's thing first.
Yeah,
He looked
just
like he
for a
had
minute.
something somewhere better to be.
Yeah, you know,
I
we all-
love
He was
I love
cool.
that he turns the meme into a sweatshirt
Dirty.
that you can buy that
Oh, right.
goes to Meals on Wheels. I think that was
He raised-
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Meals on Wheels Vermont.
Good guy, Bernie.
I think
Yeah.
he raised like $1.8 million for charity by putting his own meme on a sweatshirt and selling.
Didn't he raise it in a single day too?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
it
know
sold
about a
out.
single day, but they sold out in a single day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that tells you that somebody that you would think is out of touch with regular Americans is actually pretty in touch. But I do want to throw out the memes that came out afterwards. Everybody put Bernie in so many different positions and variations, but I did want to ask the panel their favorite Bernie Sanders meme over the last week. And I wanted to start with
Oh.
Jordan.
Oh, my favorite one. I think it's my favorite Bernie meme I have ever seen. It's a picture of him. It's the I am asking for your like that one, but the caption is, "I'm no longer asking," and he has a can of Twisted Tea in his hand, and it is the funniest shit I have ever seen.
Memes on memes.
Dude, exactly. The level of memes you need to understand to get that joke just makes it even better.
That's totally 2021. It's memeception for 2021 because
Like,
those
when
all
they-
happen right here.
Exactly. When they have meme studies classes in college, which they do, by the way, that's
It's
the
political
kind of structuring they're going to be talking about in the class. Is this layering of memes? It's very highbrow. You see.
Symbolism
It's
of it
not.
all.
It's not highbrow. It'll never be highbrow.
I am no longer asking.
So, Amanda, what was your favorite Bernie Sanders meme?
Okay, don't hate me because I have 3, and hopefully I'm not taking anybody else's, but there's a million of them, so probably not. So the first one is he's at Hogwarts in the Great Hall, and he's being sorted. So he has McGonagall
God
putting the sorting hat on.
Damn
his
it!
head. Is that yours? I'm so sorry. Other Harry Potter ones.
It's not my favorite, but it's up there.
And then there's him sitting at the lunch table in Mean Girls with the so he's one of the plastics. And then the last one is at I think either Disney World or Disneyland, but he's sitting outside of the Hall of Presidents.
Oh,
Never gonna be in.
Oh, that's so sad.
Bless his heart. Sweet old man. Never gonna be president.
Bernie.
So, those are Amanda's favorite. Vladimir, since Amanda took yours, what is yours? New one.
No, she didn't take mine. My
Okay.
favorite is oh god, actually I also have a couple. I think it's Bernie Sanders sitting on the chair amongst all the other demonic shit that's on the cover of Slayer's Rain and Blood album. There's that one. Then there is the one where Bernie is just chilling outside of the Rosebud Motel with with all the characters from Schitt's Creek. But I think the one that really takes it for me is Bernie sitting on the overpass with Deadpool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As
That's a good
Deadpool's looking
one.
at his little hand drawn crayon picture of Francis.
That's another really good one, actually. Kylan, what was your favorite?
So I also have 2. So since I'm a horror movie buff, my favorite is the one of the panoramic picture in the grand ballroom of the Overlook Hotel, with Bernie Sanders in the back of the room. And then my second one is when Bernie Sanders was tapping out, Bernie Sanders tapped out Conor McGregor.
Oh God, that's right. I forgot about that one.
Relevant.
And you guys can also join in a little fun on the fun topic here. Just comment down below. And again, remember, like and follow our page, and even like and subscribe our video here on YouTube if you're watching us later. We have a YouTube channel, by the way, so follow us on YouTube there. But Kayla Adams says that she loved the Bernie meme where Bernie was on a skateboard grinding on a rail that says "radical left."
Oh my god. Did it have like the 80s, the more you know, like underscoring under that?
But that's a pretty good one. That's a really good one, Kayla. We really appreciate your comment there. But I do want to go to Jules next.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorites is Bernie Sanders as part of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yes.
I
That's
forgot
up there
about
for
that one.
me.
That was Bernie Sanders sitting on the Iron Throne. It was a good one.
Yeah.
And then Bernie Sanders holding somebody in an arm lock. That might have been the same one as you, Kylan. But I thought that was pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Well, since everyone's getting multiple, the other
there
one
was
that I
there was
really
another
liked-
one where he's in the spot when with Sharon Stone and what's that movie?
Ghost.
Basic Instinct.
Basic
Instinct.
Instinct. Yeah, there's Bernie right
Oh
in there.
god.
But Bernie's legs crossed.
Oh no. It's Bernie
He's-
Sanders
he's
right in there in
the
between.
vagina.
Oh
He's-
my.
Instead of a
Lord.
vagina,
He's right
it
there.
is
Yeah,
Bernie
he's
Sanders.
a mini Bernie.
Oh.
You're really gonna
Bernie
feel the
Sanders right
burn
there.
with that one.
Jesus.
That was a pretty good one.
Well, you're forgetting about the one with Bernie on the porch in Friday with Chris Tucker going, "Damn!" That was one of my favorites easily.
That's a good one.
And Penny, before I tell you guys my favorites.
All right, so I had two favorites, or three. One was Bernie sitting with the Breakfast Club.
That was a good
The other
one.
one was Bernie sitting with the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Yes.
And then the other one, just because it's so ridiculous, was Bernie being held up like the Lion King.
Oh my god.
That was my favorite. That was my
amazing.
favorite.
Penny, can I ask you a question? The one where he was with the dude, were they on the rug?
Yeah.
They were on the rug. Excellent, because that rug
Yeah.
really ties the room together.
Oh my god, damn it, Vlad.
So Penny took my favorite one, which was the Lion King one. That was by far my favorite. But there were a couple really good ones. Bernie sitting in the Game of Thrones chair. Winter is Coming at the bottom. The Bernie sitting on the couch with friends, the Friends.
What's going on here?
That was another good one. And another good one, going to Jordan's point of memes within memes, was the guy with a girlfriend staring at somebody else.
Yes.
Going at Bernie just sitting there like, yeah. So those were my favorites.
Phenomenal.
So
Great.
hopefully you guys can join us and give us your favorites down in the comments. We love to hear from you guys. And once again, thank you for joining us for our 21st podcast. We really appreciate you guys' support. Again, like and follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe our videos and our channel on YouTube. We want to hear from you more and see you in the future. So we'll see you again for another Project SIP podcast in 2 weeks.
See you next time.
Bye.
Jules, we could hear your entire conversation.